Okay, class, we're going to get started. It's week 1, chapter 1, and we're going to start talking about what is organizational behavior. So organizational behavior is kind of a collection of things. We're going to be looking at the individual's behavior and group dynamics, but the real issue is that we're going to be looking at it in organizations. What is going on in organizations? And things will be happening on both levels simultaneously that we need to be aware of. So we're going to draw on the psychosocial, the interpersonal, that is between different people, and the behavioral as part of our building blocks. But we're also going to draw on other factors as well when we get to organizational behavior. Okay, so here we have variables that affect behavior: communication, performance appraisal, the jobs that are actually done, organizational design, organizational structure, which actually has quite a bit of an effect, work design, all these things. And then we're going to draw from various disciplines in order to understand what's going on. There's an internal perspective. Sometimes we just look at and we miss the mark when we only think about one perspective or another. So what's going on internally? The person that we're focusing on, what are their feelings, their past experiences, and the values that they bring to bear. And then we have to look at other factors like their external perspective, like what's going on in the environment around them that may have shaped them. So someone in an American experience may have a very different view than someone in a European or an Asian experience. But it's true within a culture as well, that you can have a different experience even within the same culture. So we have to understand that both the internal and external perspective are both there, they're both valuable, and they both add to what's going on. Now, organizational behavior draws from a number of disciplines: psychology, sociology, even engineering and medicine. It draws on management very heavily and anthropology in order to have this interdisciplinary understanding of what's going on, again, within organizations. Now, some people react to change differently than others. Some people are rigid and reactive. The door's closed, they don't want to change. And then others are open and responsive. They want to be involved in whatever the change is. Different people just come different ways. But trying to understand people, sometimes it's very difficult. I found this little meme that said trying to understand the behavior of some people is like trying to smell the color 9. Obviously, you can't smell a color. And some people are just, it's hard to understand. But the more that you understand what's going on from drawing on these different disciplines, the closer you can get to perhaps understanding them. Now, let's look at what's going on in an organization. An organization is built of many parts: task, people, structure, etc. A task is the mission, the purpose. Why are we here? The people are very important, and sometimes they're overlooked. We say that they're the human resources of the organization, but they're the lifeblood of the organization. It's not just that they're a resource. They're it. The Leadership Institute talks about how personnel is policy. That's very true. The people that you bring to bear and that you train and that you grow are going to make or break the organization. And then you have the structure of the organization. The manner in which the organization's work is designed at both the micro level, how departments and divisions, as well as the macro level. The structure of the organization can create impediments to actually working right, or it can help it flow. And then finally, technology is the tools that we will use in order to make the products or services that we're conducting. Okay, so we have inputs, we have a task environment, we have outputs, and the inputs are those resources, capital, both human and otherwise. The task environment is what are we up against? Our competitors, the unions, the government, the regulations, our clients, what's going on around the organization. And then the outputs are the products and services that we're producing in the process. Along the way, never forget that people are critical. And if you get nothing else out of this course, you're going to get a heavy emphasis on people who are, in fact, made in the image of God and made to glorify Him. You got to understand, the people are so significant, and yet they're treated badly. And if you are treated badly and you have an ability to leave, you will leave. Today I was talking with the CEO a retired CEO of a major printer company, Lanier, who was speaking on campus where I am teaching at Charleston Southern University. And so we were talking to him, and we were talking about exactly this thing, that, you know, people are, they changed their criteria from looking at just the bottom line to looking at how their new bottom line became customer service. And in doing that, it motivated people to want to care and want to act. And he was talking about how people are internal customers. And if you think of your people not just as human capital that goes into the material, but as internal customers, and you treat them as well as you treat your external customers, a lot of things will go right. Okay, so the formal organization is the official, legitimate, visible part of the system. The informal organization is less visible. And so formal are things like policies and job descriptions and financial resources and communication channels, and as opposed to informal organization. So think of it like this. Formal is like the structure of the house, the thing that you can see. The informal, the beliefs, the perceptions, the feelings that are there are more like the feeling that's within the house, right? The culture, the atmosphere. That's the informal organization. Now we're going to shift gears. Part 1 was dealing with what is organizational behavior. Part 2 is what's in the business environment. Now, I'm not sure what it is in Lithuania. I know you have 3 million or so people, and so you have a much smaller economy. The U.S. economy is about 10.9 trillion at the time of the writing of this textbook. Now, that's just one economy of all the economies on Earth, but we're all facing the same things. We're facing globalization and technical innovation and issues of diversity and particularly ethics. I mean, we feel this everywhere. It's not just in the U.S., it's everywhere. We have the exact same issues. Now, quality is important, and focusing on quality is important because it's a means for giving organizations you know, an edge. We want things that work. This is why Google is successful and Apple is successful, and other organizations like that. You have to have a customer-oriented philosophy, and this is what that CEO, a retired CEO from Lanier, was talking about. Focusing on the customer, not just the bottom line, but is the customer satisfied? If the customer is satisfied, everything else will go well. And we have to have a cultural value embedded in successful organizations, and different cultures lend themselves more or less to that. 3 key questions that you want to look at are, does an idea, when you're trying to deal with quality, does an idea improve customer response or satisfaction? Does the idea accelerate results, and does the idea raise effectiveness of our resources? Now, there are a number of ways of doing this. Six Sigma was all the rage in the U.S. for a number of years when Jack Welch was at the head of the CEO of General Electric. TQM was all the rage in the mid-90s, and they are more or less in or out of favor depending on when you're talking about it. The Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award talks about a number of ways that we can measure these things as well, and that was a kind of a fad once upon a time. It's increasingly less important. Challenges to managing organizational behavior are things like globalization, and that's not stopping. That's not a fad. Increasing diversity, that's not a fad. Continuing technological innovation, also not a fad. Continuing demand for higher levels of moral and ethical behavior, especially ethical behavior, not a fad, not going away. Okay, we need to focus on those kind of things. There are trends affecting managers. The first one you can't see here behind my name or behind my face. Trust. Trust is very important. It's not going away. Trust is going to be important anywhere you are. Security and knowledge. If you get these things right, trust, security, and knowledge, a lot of other things naturally fall into place. Well, that's about it. You have a challenge ahead of you as you enter the workforce, but there's also an opportunity.